Oh, my goodness. We actually have a nice day, Willie. Have a nice day. We actually got him scheduled to talk Super 32. That's the quick way. Hey, Willie, we want to talk Super 32. How do we do that? Oh, yeah, we talk Super 32. So first time in a long time back on the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. Willie Saylor, we're going to talk Super 32, but we're not going to do it in the way that he did on his show and other places have done. It's a little bit of preview, but it's a little bit maybe how the sausage is made. And no, our respective parents did not dress us the same today because I'm gonna. Oh my, really?
I mean, I have a pretty good idea what happened, right?
Yeah, it came in the mail a day or two ago.
Right, exactly.
It's sitting there like, okay, you know what? I put on a Bent Brewstillery shirt today, but I'm like, I'm going to be talking about high school wrestling. Do I really want to wear a beer shirt? Now, granted, I'm in a bar, and I'm talking to Bobby Budweiser here. So, I mean, you can do all of those things, but
I don't know if it comes through on the stream, but the shirt's fire.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to this after the fact while you're on the ride to Greensboro, which is going to be one of my questions. Actually, I need to add that because I have another add-on. So we're going to add a couple questions. We have some questions, playing like 10 questions plus with Willie because one of those questions is not what time he texted me the other morning. We won't talk about the response time because I'm actually proud of you, Willie. You are returning texts these days. It may be within 72 hours, but, you know, I'm proud of you, man.
I know. You know what? I've done a better job returning the text because past couple days because of the amount of text I got about seating. So I made it a point to like be on point. You know, it like if it's certain things like, hey, give me a holler, it's one thing. But if I signed up to be the seater, and if I'm going to do that, I'm going to be punctual about it.
Yeah, or if it's a David Taylor fantasy trade.
Yeah, right.
I mean, those things, I mean, got world champions. By the way, I actually just picked up 2 David Taylor bobbleheads. I've got his Penn State one and a World Championship one, which they may be priced to move if you're out there watching in Facebook, Twitter, or Twitch. Okay, what are you doing now? Go ahead. I'm curious.
I got David Taylor is trying to still text me stuff. He tries to fleece you, is what he does. And the last text I got was, "What are you thinking?" Because he proposed a trade offer, and I didn't get back to him.
All right, I want to know before we, because David and Jimmy Kennedy, his brother-in-law, we were at that years ago at the beach games, which was the Flips compound thing we did down at at Don Bishada's house down in Lavalette, I believe was the name of the town. And one of the things he was talking about, we were coming back from go-karts. And yes, go-karting, which, by the way, I was dead last in every single race, but it's because I weighed more than everybody else. Okay. I feel like my driving skills were much, much better because I was so much faster each of the 3 trips around that it was like a legit go-kart track, like Sage Karam type go-kart stuff. But they're doing daily fantasy, and that's when I jumped into daily fantasy for a little bit, and I did okay, but ultimately I'm not a huge gambler. So but David's into the fantasy sports. He's into the daily fantasy stuff. So it doesn't strike me as odd that he's trying to always get the upper hand on a trade. So what's the worst trade he's ever proposed to you? I got to know that one.
I don't know what the worst are. The whole entire league tries to, and there's more trades in that league than ever. It's David, Matt McCutcheon, and Nate Brown constantly try to fleece you in trades. It's always
like the old wrestling talk forum with the late Russell Payton trading. Do you end up with the same thing you draft? I always like dance with who you took to the date or date with, dance with your date kind of thing. I don't make many trades in fantasy sports, but
I don't.
There's some bad ones.
I'm speaking of daily fantasy. I have always done horrible at DraftKings. For some reason, the last 3 weeks I won. I don't, and I just did it because why not kill some time? Give me 10 minutes to do something in between seating. And I've been doing really well, but I'm sure that's not going to last.
Yeah, me, it's wake up, have my coffee, put my kids on the bus, have my coffee, watch the only news channel that's actually doing local news at that time at 8 in the morning. Go figure. There's no it's all national at that point. Thank you, Central Time Zone. And then I go Wordle, New York Times crossword, maybe some Mario Kart Tour, where I may be on a particular piece of porcelain at that time. I may be sitting in my nice padded chair in front of my TV. But Wordle today, not easy. So no spoilers, but Willie's gotten into the Wordle.
Wordle really ticked me off today because I got the letters early in the first 2, and I'm like, no spoilers, but the first letter had to be a certain letter. I'm like, how does this even make sense? But I got it. Wordle. How do you say it?
Wordle. That's yeah. Wordle. I got to the point I was playing like 7 of them. I'm like, this is too much.
Wordle. Today was really good. I don't know.
Yeah. That one, I don't think too many people spoil. I think, Suriname. But it's funny because, that's a spoiler if you haven't played it. But okay, nobody plays that except for like geography nerds. Hey, Gildersleeve Middle School 7th grade geography bee right here. But
is it really?
I was in the spelling bee until I took Spanish in 9th grade. Then my spelling just went. It's kind of sketch. Although
I'll tell you what, if you get into like August, maybe sometime in like June, when there's not a lot of wrestling going on, I'm going to be honest with you. I look at maps a lot. I made myself memorize all of South America this summer. I don't know why. That's why Suriname was so easy today.
Well, sometimes you can look at them and see, oh, that looks like there's a coast. It's not a jagged coast. So, but sometimes it throws you off when the little countries are giant. You're like, no. But my oldest daughter, was watching these YouTube videos. If you have kids out there, you've probably seen them. Willie, if you have kids that you know about, you've probably seen them. The countries of the world. And they go through. It's like a much more like content creator or YouTube-esque of the Animaniacs, the countries of the world. So we knew that, or like Animaniacs or something. But I'll sit there one day. I looked at it and I showed Lucy, who's sitting there eating cereal. She goes, "I think that's Bhutan." And I'm like, "All right, holy crap! It was she was 9 years old. She's now 10. She's like, how
How?
many 9-year-olds, one, know where Bhutan is, two, know Bhutan to begin with, and three, know the shape of it on a black and white map. So
Crazy.
she hit me with another one.
And like, if you tell me a country, I can pretty much, I know where it is. But if you just showed me the silhouette of it, like Wordle does, it's hard. Like, I know the shape of Ohio. I don't know the shape of Guinea-Bissau.
No, Equatorial Guinea is a square, but yeah. So she knows Benin too. I usually give her right first shot. I was like, what do you think? And if I know, oh, that's Benin, and then sometimes you go, oh, that's the Gambia because of the river. Like, seriously, like the African countries are rough. Like Paraguay, Bolivia, Uruguay always screw me up. And then no, the islands are the worst part. Like Timor-Leste, really? Mm-hmm. I did get Burkina Faso in number 3. I think 3rd yesterday, but. All right, we're not talking about countries of the world. Now that's going to be stuck in my head.
I could talk about countries all day.
I could too, because I now have my visa for Baku. So I will be going to the World Cup in beginning. I have off from hockey. So
Benin is just like this, right?
Yeah, Benin is straight next to Ghana, Ivory Coast, Guinea, and that Atlantic southwestern edge of Africa. So, yeah. If it bounced the satellite off the Azores, it's a Wayne's World reference for you. But anyway, yeah. And, here's another thing. Look, Joe Caprino in the chat. Yes, I'm bringing in the chat from here. We can actually do that. I can actually. Now, how do I get rid of that? You see that? That's in the Facebook chat. So, yeah, that's one thing. You use Ecamm, Willie. You can actually, if you went live on a platform other than the fin there, the rock fin, you could actually add in the chats from Facebook.
For being a journalist, I'm like, in the year 2022, I don't know anything about technology, and so
in the year 2000, yeah. Wow, we're also this is like we're in our 40s.
Did it tweet from Matt Talk?
No, that was a Facebook message from that's on. It's also running on my personal Facebook page. I'll put it on Matt Talk here in a bit, one of these days. But I haven't done live in a long time. But I'm gonna do it again from the bar behind me. I can't really do that. Yeah, I'm gonna have it set up so you can see my pennants. But right now. This is the first live show I've done in a while. I did one with Jared Lawrence a couple weeks ago talking about the P&L. So before we get Super 32, what were your thoughts on the P&L?
I thought it was cool, and I think that it really accomplishes a couple things. It gets in a competition for the guys, for their teams, right? There's a tournament. If you need competition leading into you go for a break after Fargo or whatever, right? And then you start ramping back up, and you need a competition in there somewhere. On P&L weekend, go to a lot of those Pinnacle kids also went to Journeyman, so they got a couple in. But I think it gives them an opportunity to get a good competition, number one. Number two, it's sort of staying true to their roots because let's face it, there's nothing wrong with these other tournaments. There's nothing wrong with a dual tournament at Disney Duels, or a dual tournament at NHSCAs, or a dual tournament at Ultimate Duels, but they're often filled with ringers, right? And these guys are having a competition with club kids.
Yeah, and no disrespect to those teams and whatnot, but I mean, come on, is that a team, or is it like, okay, we're going to assemble the best? It's an all-star team.
Yeah.
So I mean, they don't hide the fact, but I mean, and some of our friends are on the side picking up those trophies and such. So you guys know what we're talking about. We're not beating you up over it, but yeah, I love the fact that
I actually
these are
like
Pinnacle
it.
kids, like right down the road. I mean, yeah, Pinnacle does have kids that do drive multiple hours to get there a couple times a month. So I know Jared had talked about a kid from, I think he used Border West, where out where I think Camp Socorro is from that area. But that is literally on the border in the West. It's not just a cutesy named town that's geographically diverse from what its name is. But there's kids from Wisconsin that come over to Pinnacle, down in Rochester. So I know, and where I sit is about probably a 7-minute drive to Pinnacle, so I need to get over there more. But I was hoping.
Hawken Peterson drives like hours. I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But Hawken Peterson in Wisconsin drives to Seabolt.
Yeah, that's like a 6-hour drive, isn't it?
Yes,
it's nuts. And just
Jody
for
Karam-
those of you that live on the East Coast, and Willie, thankfully you've traveled enough to this isn't the case. Just everything in the Midwest is not necessarily an easy drive. Oh, well, you're close. Although Midwestern folk tend to think of a 6-hour drive as nothing. I know my wife is telling me, oh, yeah, we used to drive to Washington all the time. I'm like, from Minnesota, it's like literally Minnesota's halfway in between. Like I can be in Seattle at the same amount of time I can be in Hampton, Virginia. So, yeah, it's a bit of a haul.
One of the first occasions when I went to Nebraska, all the bars let out at like 1:00 in the morning, and there's this gyro spot, which people out there will tell you they're called gyros, but whatever. I call them gyros. So it's like 1:30 in the morning, and everybody's half drunk, and everybody's eating and stuff. And I just had met some random dudes, and they're like, we started talking. They're like, "Yo, you should come with us to Denver this weekend." And I'm like, "What's going on in Denver? There's a concert or something?" It's like, "No, but it's only like 9-hour drive." And I'm like, "What, dude? No, not only. I'm not just driving for somewhere just because it's close and you're in your mind, in your Midwestern mind."
Yeah, I mean, my edge now is like 4. Like Fargo's 3.5, Madison's 4, Iowa City is 5, and it's like, I think once I get to Des Moines or Fargo, those are like the edge of like I can go in a day and back. I made a trip from here to Omaha years ago. It was the Wrestling 411 year where I did the number 1 in D1 versus the number 1 in D2. So Augsburg wrestled Nebraska, Omaha. I drove down, shot the video of the match, and drove back in the same day.
Yeah.
That 6 hours is a bit much in one day. So that being said, so speaking of drives, I'm going to jump ahead. Actually, no, I'm going to save that one. I could have segued that into a nice question.
I'm flying to.
You're flying. Yeah. So real quick, just the nuts and bolts, Super 32 on the MatScouts rankings. How many ranked kids do you have? I mean, I know you said one of the weights there was like 19 out of 20, which is unheard of. But off the top of your head, how many ranked high school kids we got competing this year?
I don't know the total number, but it's all the way up through. I'm doing the written preview now, which is very bare bones, by the way, because I did the video show. But even up 170, 182, there's 12 ranked guys. It doesn't thin out. It doesn't go beneath. It doesn't get into the single digits until 95 or 220.
Yeah, and that's typical because it's still football season. So
right, and even 70 and 60 and 52, they're 12. They're not even 10 ranked guys. They're 12 ranked guys, and so the participation is really high. And I always wait till after Super 32 because that's when the guys are at their fighting weights going forward. But that's when I expand rankings from 20 to 25. And if I would rank 20 to 25 right now, the participation among those, the ratio that gets in there is really high too. So it'd even be higher. But it's just an incredible field. And it almost, to me, it's almost a phenomenon because to me, it's really organic, the way it came together. It wasn't. I've been involved in putting on events and building fields, and there's a lot of outreach that goes with that. There's a lot of, hey, I'm having this event, would love to have you. Hey, call up a club coach that's good, and hey, I'm having this event, really mean a lot to me if you got there, right? And I'm sure that people that run events sympathize with that. Like, yeah, you got to get the people there. You got to get the best kids there. You try to get the best field you can. Hell, even down to cadet and junior duels, right? It's like every state leader's like, yeah, let's get the best kids that we can. They're almost trying to recruit their own state and to get the best kids to have a competitive team at national duels. Well, Super 32 is one of the like few that, I mean, they're closing the door on some ranked guys, right? They don't need to go solicit.
What was it? I don't know if they still do this or not. They do they auction off like the late entry, and they're like big money going for these things. It's nuts.
Yeah, I think
Was it?
this year was a couple $1,000. So, because I've worked with Dave and Sarah on some things for a little while, and people know that, I'll get texts and calls and emails and, hey, my kid I forgot to register. Can you get me in? No, listen, there's one thing. Maybe I got some pull in certain circles, but Dave and Sarah are flat out like, no. And I think for good reason. I think a lot of people would expect me to say, of all people, well, if you're ranked, you got to get them in, right? But no, you have not. When you have a system where it's early entry, you can get in.
Mhm.
You can get in, even if you're on the fence about going or whatever.
And there's tournaments you can even get into too. To all right, I'm going to win this one. I know Joe Caprino calling us nerds. I mean, he's got the InterMat tournament that's freaking huge now because people want to get into the Super 32 as well. I mean, it's a good tournament on its own, but there's that added benefit.
Right. So, for instance, Tyler Kasich didn't register. Tyler Vasquez didn't register. Kel Lauritsen didn't register. These are guys that placed at Super 32 before, and they could have well been in the tournament. All they had to do was register, but they didn't, and then they regretted it, and I can't do nothing about it. Now, you can win the auction, but the auction, last I heard, was like a couple grand.
Yeah, I might buy some really goofy stuff on eBay, like antiquated hockey pennants from the 70s from like dead leagues in Virginia, which I'm going to throw this one up here. You didn't see this earlier. My latest acquisition is the Southern Hockey League from the Hampton Gulls. So, late John Brophy coached them. Southern Hockey League, 1974. Hampton Coliseum, where they have the Virginia Duels. So, we weren't even born yet. So that ought to tell you how old that is. What?
Is it still alive?
What, the Gulls?
Yeah.
No, that league died in like 2 years later. It was a run of all those like minor in the 70s and 80s. There were these massive like pro sports, minor league sports leagues just popping everywhere. There was this adult slow pitch softball league, a professional slow pitch league in Minnesota. I found a pennant for that for the Minnesota Goofies, and the F was backwards. Not buying that one, by the way. Circling back to wrestling, most loaded weight class without going into robust detail about how deep it is, but just if you're looking like, wow, this weight is loaded, I'm going to guess it's usually probably, anywhere from 6 to whatever weight classes they are using. What are they using? Federation or New Federation or Michigan?
I'd be interested in your thoughts here. They called me a couple months ago and said, what's your opinion on the weight classes with all these states having different weight classes? And I said, you know what? In my opinion, I would stay status quo and just see how it plays out. Just see how kind of the nation adapts before you adapt, right? And so they're staying with the 106, 113, 120. What do you think?
Not being in the high school realm as much as I used to. I know last year at the Virginia Duels, I'm looking at it, I go, what's the, or actually it was the Ironman I first noticed. I'm like, what's this? Because the Ironman went to the different weights. Michigan's never changed. And then we've got I honestly, I think I've finally memorized the high school weights since I haven't had to do high school rankings since they changed. So that was one thing that I'm like, okay, wait, now what is this new one? It's just, and I remember back in the day, you remember Fred Rousey from Texas? Texas had a 180. He ended up wrestling at Harvard, but it was a 180, and he was like a 2 or 3 time state champ. Did well, I think, did well at Super 32. Did well at some of these national tournaments. Might have been Bert Adidas Nationals where he beat some national guy. I mean, it was like pre-monster tournament era. And I remember I was like, where do you rank him? 171 or 189? So we ended up ranking him most of the time at 89 because when he left Texas, he'd have to go up.
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah. What was another one prior to? We remember the years prior to 215 in some states. Pennsylvania was one of the last ones to have it. Maryland didn't have it. So there's like Mike Faust was a 215 pounder, and like at the national, like the Beast, the early Beast and stuff, and like he'd be like the perfect 220 in Fargo, for example, and the old 220, and it was like okay, and then he's got to go heavyweight. For when he went into PA or something. Matt Feast, I think.
I remember one time I wanted to die. I was pulling my butt off to make 103, but we got 2-pound allowance, so it was 105. But we wrestled a Jersey team the next day, which didn't have the 2-pound allowance yet. So I had to make 105 on a Wednesday and 104 on a Thursday. I just want life to be over. It was bad.
Screw you, Eastern Peaburg match. Yeah, but all right. Now let's see. Let's start it off with something that's more fun than the nuts and bolts. Okay, so let's start this since we haven't started the tournament yet.
Well, the question though is 120. 120 this year.
We didn't even get to the answer to the damn question. That's what happens when we talk.
120 this year is de facto folkstyle national championship. I mean, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 14, 15, 19. You know, I mean, it's basically a national championship at 120 pounds. And you talk about national championships. Well, the top 2 seeds are a cadet world gold medalist and a cadet world silver medalist, you know? So just a phenomenal group.
All right, so let's get to the actual. I have, let's see, 9, 10. I have like 12 questions here. Might as well stick with the 12 theme. So since we haven't gotten to Greensboro yet, I'm going to go with this in preparation. Where you sit there and I had a 9-hour drive one time to the Super 32 with our friend Gary Brownell. And if you don't know what Gary Brownell means in the world of wrestling, his name is Gimp. Okay, 9 hours in the car with Gimp. That was one of my most interesting Super 32 rides. Roomed with him that year. I also roomed with Josh Lowe one year. So my question to you is your favorite Super 32 roommate or your favorite ride to the Super 32 in your past?
Well, first of all, I hate driving a Super 32. The flights are absolutely ridiculous right now. I don't know if it's because of the economy or because I just booked mine like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
That's usually it. I mean, you're chronically late with your travel preparation.
Absolutely. I kid you not.
Willie just booked his flight to Serbia. Worlds have been over for a month.
Listen, I have to pack for Super 32. I leave at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I have to pack. I have not unpacked my bags from Worlds yet. It's still over there, just sitting completely full of what.
That is the first thing. I didn't get my bags back until like day and a half later because I missed my connection in Paris. Yeah, first thing I do, both bags go down the steps, open up. They're in the laundry. Who knows what I'm picking up from the airports and stuff. So, yeah. I'm not sure what you have festering in there. So the question: favorite 32 roommate or favorite car partner down there? Because I drove with Gimp, and then that's pretty much the only time I've driven down there with anybody else.
I only drove down there like once or twice. The word I don't know. I never had a good passenger or trip down there, but Corey Haddad, who runs the Ironman, I was so tired. I drove all the way down. I was up all night doing probably not good things, like, you know, at the bars till 2, whatever. And then woke up at 6 a.m. to get back to the arena. So I was just dragging tail. And I said, Corey, you're going to have to drive back a little bit, man. I'm dead. I'm dead tired. And, you know, we were 2 hours into the trip, and he just falls asleep, boom, against the thing. And he sleeps the whole time. And I didn't think I was going to make it home. So that's the bad trip.
I remember when I was living in Lancaster, when I was with InterMat, one of the first years, I didn't drive. The one year I drove with Gimp, I met him at like the Harrisburg Mall, and we're in there. I meet him in the mall, and he turns around, and there's Mario Stewart, just like walking through the mall right there. He goes, "Hey, there's Mario Stewart." I'm like, "Really?" He wasn't very tall either. So
Mario,
yeah, so it's weird.
I wrestled him
in Harrisburg. Yeah, I know. I've had to throw the old Lehigh Valley thing at you.
I wrestled him a bunch in high school. He is doing really good now, I hear.
Yeah, I mean, that was for a while ago. Dylan Morrison here, he's got a bad one. You drive down from upstate New York down there. That is, yeah, I drove to Fargo from Virginia a couple times and Colorado a couple times. Those are not fun. So let's see. I'm trying to think. anything else. Although your bar thing, one time prior to going to Fargo, it was Mojito night at Brendy's in Lancaster. And let's just say, I think that was the morning I actually got on the plane. I met Sammy Julian for the first time at the Harrisburg airport flying to Fargo. So pretty sure those two relate.
I think that ride sucks.
It was
ride from PA to, and I hate the one to NHSCA's too. I hate it.
Oh, well, see, for NHSCA or anything going to Virginia Beach is rough. When I was living in Pennsylvania, I'd come down. Once you hit that stretch after Richmond and you're on through New Kent on 64, it's just like the end is near, but this hour and 15 minutes is going to suck. Or if you're going to Virginia Beach, it's another 30 minutes past where I live. So, all right. So now, sticking with the travel theme.
Yeah.
The best spot in Greensboro to pre-hydrate or load up prior to the first whistle. So not rehydrate, pre-hydrate. I think that's the first time I've ever used this term on the show. And
pre-hydrate. First of all, the Friday night at Hooters is just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. Everybody's there. Oh, it's just filled with wrestling people.
Is Hooters to Greensboro what the turf is to Fargo, or the B-Dubs is to Fargo?
Well, it's certainly the turf is like a local. Right?
Well, the turf's where you end up. It's not actually where you start. You can go anywhere at any time of day and actually see somebody at B-Dubs.
The version of the turf, I would say, is Smoky Bones.
Okay. Yes, because your local, your national chain barbecue establishment is what you're going for there.
Well, it's not a Hooters, right?
There's a Smoky Bones in Newport News as well, so I'm well versed. I didn't even know
it was a chain. But so Daryl's, and if you're listening to the show, come to Friday night. Go to Hooters.
There's Daryl's still open.
Oh yeah, baby, I love
Dude,
it.
I went to ring dance at a Daryl's like in 11th grade. The ones in Hampton are all closed.
What the hell's a ring dance?
That's where you get your class ring.
Oh,
which I think mine's still back behind me somewhere from 25 years ago.
Daryl's is phenomenal, and you know what? I love.
It's like the triple threat sampler.
Yeah. I love staple restaurants. Right, you go to a wrestling tournament. It's the same place every year, and you hit that spot like anywhere. Iron Man has Wing Factory at the end of the corner. It's the greatest thing in the world.
Was that where you guys called me from last year or 2 years ago? Wherever.
Probably. I'm there every year. But the only problem is it doesn't matter. They should know when the Super 32 tournament is, but they never up their staff. You have to wait for an hour to get a glass of water.
That's the South, brother. Let me just stop that right there. We went to Birmingham for Division Twos one year, and it was like I was with Adam Fenn's nephew, who was doing some stuff when we were doing the live video. I think it was actually before he even joined the Flow team. It was his Wrestling Video Solutions team, and it was like we went to dinner at an Applebee's in Birmingham, hour and a half, and it's just. You go to the Chili's in Hampton on Mercury Boulevard. It's an hour, a little bit slower down south. That's one thing you got to remember.
Yeah, but wouldn't you like the first year that it happened and you were overwhelmed and everything was going badly? Would you not then say, you know what, from now on, I got to schedule additional staff for the weekend of the Super 32? No, they don't do that.
We could talk the food and drink portion of travel forever, but heck, we're 30 some minutes into our first show in a while, and we've asked 2 wrestling questions, so let's get another wrestling question in here. Your most memorable or favorite non-final Super 32 match?
Non-final. I'll tell you a big one. A big one was Brody Teskey beat somebody. And it was like, who the heck or what the heck? And I forget who it was, but it was it Piccinini? It might have been Pitch. Or am I messing that up? I don't. The one year Brody Teskey just shocked somebody. But it's really. First of all, the Sunday is awesome because it's one of the great rounds in high school wrestling because it's 4 quarterfinal matches right in a row, and you can watch the whole thing. But the Saturday is like chaos because it's in 2 rooms, and if you notice that an upset's going down, and you go over here, and then there's an upset happening over here, and you run over there. It's kind of interesting and unique. But I don't know. There's been so many Joey Dance, Randy Cruz was a really great match, and that was not a final. Nikki Hodgkins. I remember it was the far mat. It was Nikki Hodgkins and maybe James Green. That was an insane match. That was the year Nikki Hodgkins beat Alex Derringer at Dapper Dan. Shocked everybody. But oh man, you'd have to give me some prep time to
That's why I say, shoot from the hip. Like you get those things from Fargo all the time. I figured you might have had one. I'm trying to. I just know that a lot of times when the years I was there, I'd go down and I'd look and I'd be pointing the small college coaches to, or the mid majors. I hate, as much as I hate that term. Be like, hey, keep an eye on this guy. He's off your radar. Yeah. Don't know if he'll place. He's going to win a couple matches. So that that the press box or the coach's room basically, I'm like, okay. Keep an eye on this kid. He's probably, he could be a good, that's a guy to keep, it's one of those things like you're not going to see him much longer because, we're talking, I'm trying to think 2008, geez, of 14 years ago that, the tournament became a monster.
I tried to do that this year with, I wrote an article on potential bracket busters and I wrote an article on guys I'm keeping my eye on, which, I think there's a little bit of difference between those two categories because I just think some guys are ready to break through, and some guys I wouldn't say are ready to break through, but they've shown some glimpses that they could cause some upsets. So I try to put as many names out as possible to get them some attention. And also new names. They're new names that coaches can, kind of explore and see if they're the right fit for the program.
So to that point, breakout senior that's underappreciated, the guy like right now who isn't ranked that's going to have the big breakout moment. Who do you see that being? A couple candidates.
Well, I think that there's a kid named Brandon Sonnentag out of Wisconsin. He only has like 1 or 2 interesting wins, and he's at a tough weight. They're all tough weights, but I think he could break through. I think there's a kid named Miles Johnson at 195, and this is again what like stuff that I love. Unsigned, uncommitted senior Miles Johnson, 195. He took 3rd in Ohio last year. His only loss was to Camden McDaniel, who was a trials finalist. I think he's a real player at 195. I think he's going to place and maybe place high. He beat the Indiana State runner-up at Joe's tournament, the Hoosier preseason, and so I think that is one kid that'll catch some people by surprise. In the middleweights, it's tough to tell, and that's kind of what the interesting thing is that in the middleweights there will be somebody to surprise, but you can't even call it. You can't even call it right now. Cam Catcherbone took 3rd last year. He came out of nowhere, and he took 3rd. And the names he beat to take 3rd. I mean, yeah, I knew who Cam Catcherbone was, but to expect that performance out of him was just, those are the stories I love, the ones I didn't see coming.
So I guess sticking with the 195 theme, who do you think the most college-ready upper weight is 170 plus in the field? Because I know we've got a lot of football players, so we don't see them 195, 220 heavyweight, but who do you think's the most college-ready 170?
I think that we were really blessed. We were really blessed for a while with heavyweights that were going to translate to college and were really successful. I think we got spoiled with that a little bit, and we just came to accept if he's a top 5 heavyweight, he's going to translate. And that's not always the case. If you ask any Division I coach, what's the hardest weight to recruit, they'll tell you guys that are going to be at 125 for more than a couple years and heavyweight. And you can take a top 5 heavyweight and they don't always work out in college. And you get a guy like Anthony Cassar who was on nobody. I mean, right? There's a perfect foil of why heavyweight's so difficult. Gable Stevenson, greatest prospect I would say that I ever saw in high school, against Anthony Cassar, somebody that wasn't even on my radar.
He made the state tournament one time. Was it one trip, one title?
That's right. And so heavyweight's really difficult. And to complicate matters, you sort of have like guys that, like Cassar, wrestled 195 in high school, and then you have 220, and and that's the same problem with 125. I mean, you're really condensing four weights into a 125 prospect list, and you're sort of condensing 2 or 3 weights into a heavyweight prospect list. And it's a long way of saying that I think that the number of heavyweight prospects right now in the country is not good. I don't think we have a lot of heavyweight prospects that are wrestling heavyweight right now. In fact, the more I talk to coaches, the more they think that Roon Lawrence is going to be a really good heavyweight prospect, which is interesting because he was a 170 pounder last year. He was 170 for 2 years actually. And now he's up at 195. And so the most college ready from 70 on up, I would say is either Braden Thompson or Rocco Welsh. I think that Rocco Welsh could compete right now in college. I know that Braden Thompson could. The only thing wrong with Braden Thompson already got the college defense down. He just needs to be able to score a little bit more, and that'll come. But you saw him kind of, he was in a lot of low scoring matches at U20 trials, and he was in a lot of low scoring matches at U20 Worlds.
One of the biggest problems we have in the sport of wrestling, when those of us that have to be in the gym start to finish, it's not like you can leave during breaks. It is trying to find the restroom. So what is the secret to finding the most functional wrestling tournament bathroom, whether it be the Super 32, the Ironman, or any tournament, save having your own suite at the World Championships?
Having my own suite was such a blessing. That was wonderful.
Except when the guy came in and dropped one, like without even saying hi.
Yeah, some dude came in my suite, just used the bathroom and left. Never said hi. Never saw him. Just heard the door and the toilet.
Did he flush?
I hope so.
Didn't leave well, did you flush? If you said you hope so, okay. It's not like he's leaving an upper decker or anything in there. That would have been problematic.
I think he did. I stole a lot of toilet paper from that arena throughout the week because the Airbnb, you only have a couple rolls,
I was the opposite. I would take it from the hotel to the facility because I never knew what they got. Of course, this was the first time I forgot dude wipes, but enough about wiping places that nobody ever wants to see. That's you or my whatever. Anyway,
the one at Super 32. Here's the key. If you're a media, you get really friendly with the referees. Over the years, I've gotten friendly with a lot of the crew that works at Super 32, and I use their bathroom, and they don't say boo. They have their own room in there. There are 2 rooms. I go in there, nobody cares.
Hampton Coliseum, the referee's locker room is actually out of the way from anybody. You wouldn't even know it's there other than last time I was down there. Last year I couldn't go because I got COVID, but I walk in and it's like it's the Star. It's the Star dressing room. It's like, yep, Elvis was in here once. And then I remember texting Jerry Briscoe about the Hampton Coliseum. He goes, yep, Wahoo McDaniel, or said somebody as a Wahoo McDaniel or Chief Jay Strongbow or somebody was never let inside the city of Hampton again based on what happened in the Star dressing room at the Hampton Coliseum during the show. So my secret was always making friends with the AD. like especially in tournaments that are at high school. So the late Bill Myers at Oscar Smith that in Chesapeake, or the late Dale Rowe at Denby High School, Newport News. Yeah. Hey, Coach Rowe, can I see your keys? Good to go. Good to go. All right, next up, sticking with the almost wrestling theme. Actually, you fancy yourself a foodie, so why are grits so hard to find outside of the South?
You know what? I don't know, but Daryl's Shrimp and Grits. Like I know it's a chain, but it's a small chain, and Daryl's Shrimp and Grits are the bomb. Why are they so hard to find? I don't know. I mean, they should be. I'm a big grit guy. You know what? Here's what I think the problem with grits is.
Is it grits is or grits are?
Grits are. I don't know.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I'm asking you.
Grits.
That has been a start word on Wordle one day. I used grits. Was not the word of the day.
Grits are. There's so many variations of grits, kind of, right? Like, I mean, Italians have grits, but it's called polenta, right? So
them's hominy grits. Yeah. Let's channel my cousin Vinny for a second.
Are you saying that the water on your stove?
On your stove. Oh man, it's a scientific impossibility. All right, next up. I'm trying to figure out which one we want to go with here. Dude, love grits. I've got my kids at least one of my kids liking grits. So,
I'll tell you what,
I'm a shrimp and grits guy, dude. Every time I go down south, I have to make sure. Like we had shrimp and grits, and also had alligator sausage and duck sausage at a place in Savannah, Georgia, not Savannah, Tennessee. So yeah.
Here's one though. Here's a national chain from every corner, from Seattle to Miami to California to Maine, that has grits on their menu. Waffle House. Every time.
Yeah, but Waffle House's cheese grits is basically grits poured over a piece of sliced American cheese.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they're great.
I am not gonna say. The last time I was in a Waffle House,
I love Waffle House.
Might have been the one in Hampton, next to the Hooters, next to the Hampton Coliseum, because there always seems to be a B-Dubs, a Hooters, and a Waffle House near a wrestling tournament. Yeah, me and Lee Pritz were having cheese grits at never mind. Don't want to get Shooter in trouble with. Anyway, I don't even think he was at Arizona State back then. Anyway, and Steve Cashman jumping out here. He's a old Virginia guy, Lafayette High School back in the day. Shrimp and grits today from Eggheads in Gloucester. Now it's Gloucester, not Gloucester. Actually, believe it or not, Coleman Scott has family in Gloucester, Virginia. But so yeah, instant grits don't count. Quick cook grits are like on the edge because it's kind of all I can really get up here, the 5-minute to 7-minute ones. So I have to settle with that.
How can you not get grits there?
It's not a Minnesota thing.
There's places in America where you can't get. I mean, you could get them. Order them online or something. Listen, I found pierogies in Austin, Texas.
Hey, Austin's weird.
It is weird.
Austin's weird. All right, so moving on to a wrestling question. Hardest weight to seed?
Hardest weight to seed was probably, there's some weights in the middle that the parity was like crazy. I mean, some of the weights I can see with my eyes closed because it's just the order, and even though they're really great wrestlers and there's 100 of them, there's a clear pecking order. When you get into 32 and 38 and 45 and 52, they were really tricky because, like, Nasir Bailey is my 1 seed at 132.
Get rocked up.
He lost twice this this summer in not rinky-dink tournaments, but it's not a Fargo. They were like little dual tournaments, right? But he has to go one, in my opinion. He won Fargo. He won Ironman. And he took a couple losses in between. But Lemley's biggest win was... And Nasir Bailey beat the number 1 at 138. Who's number 1? So he has all that going for him, and he comes down a weight. I had to put him ahead of Lemley, who had a win over Cannon Webster, but what else did he do in recent days or recent months? Right, he didn't do much. So, and then you go Vince Robinson, Alex Ninny, Grayson Clark, who didn't place at Fargo, Kyler Larkin, who just lost to a kid. Kyler Larkin, right?
He's a wrestling. That's a wrestling camp by Eric Larkin, is it not? A wrestling school by Eric Larkin, is it not?
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
I like the the illusion. So Kyler Larkin beats everybody at trials, and then goes to P&L and loses to Daniel Zepeda. Daniel Zepeda beat at P&L. Daniel Zepeda beat both Kyler Larkin and Dalton Perry, both finalists at the trials. But Zepeda didn't place at a state tournament, didn't place at Fargo, didn't place at Super 32. He didn't place at a state tournament. Okay? So how do you that's why I'm saying 32, 38, 45, there was the most flux. Now, and so I don't watch Flow stuff, but I guess they were on there today saying there's no real rationale for the rankings or for the seeding. I don't know. If results aren't rationale, they were up in arms. Ben was up in arms. So somebody sent it to me and said, Ben.
Let's also remember in some situations, Ben is a coach, so he's going to see things the Ben way in terms of how his kids are versus,
it was very transparent. It was very he even said Aiden Sinclair. Here's the thing about Aiden Sinclair. He goes, I see Aiden Sinclair only got the 4 seed. I wonder what's up with that. I don't see the rationale. What do you mean with the rationale? He's not going to be ahead of Roon Lawrence, who was the highest returning placer and a 2-time state champ. He's not going to be ahead of Camden McDaniel, who was the finalist in a best of 3 series at 92 kilograms, while Sinclair was third at a lower kilogram. He placed higher. McDaniel placed higher at a higher weight than Sinclair, who just moved up from 82. So where do you think he's going to go? The highest he could be is 3, and I have him 4. So if you want, I don't know.
To that point, I want to know what the best legit justification you've gotten to change a seed after you've published something. You get a lot of bad ones. You sometimes tweet about these things, but give me a good one that I missed it. Good point. Or what would it take?
Well, when it comes to high school, almost virtually nothing. When it comes, actually, Troy Mantanona, because I had Grieger, Chalakian, and Daniel Zepeda kind of high, and Brock behind him, and he was like, Willie, Brock won that weight at the state tournament, and Grieger and he said Zepeda didn't even place. I was like, fair point. So I switched that around. I kind of docked. I dinged Brock pretty hard for a loss at junior duels, but or cadet duels. Come to find out, he was injured, and 2, it wasn't. In retrospect, it wasn't that bad of a loss. But anyway, there's a couple things like that where it's hard because that situation was hard because Zepeda beat like number 5 and number 6, and I don't know. So, but that was a good point. But at high school, it rarely, and I listen to all kinds of feedback. I'll listen to anything, and I'll make the change. After all, it's not about me being right. It's about doing it right for saving Sarah and Dave, and doing it right for the kids and the coaches. But at the high school level, it doesn't happen too often. At the middle school level,
I want no part of middle school. I don't, that's one thing I was like, nope. Help found the Virginia Challenge, done my share with the middle school wrestling. Nope. I don't even want to get into that because a lot of that's just like, well, the kids that have the parents that have a little bit more of the travel budget can get the more win. They have that flexibility, whereas the kid that's I've only wrestled in the league is you're limited by your match count really.
The problem with the middle school, I miss a lot of results that happened in small dinky tournaments or dual tournaments. I mean, I know the results from all the roller events and NHSCAs and NHSCA duels, and I know all the events from a lot of the majors, but there'll be this one, it might have happened in the Mobbin Classic round robin. I'm sorry, I missed it, and they're right
It's
to
on
point it
Rockfin.
out.
You should have seen that one. Come on, Willie.
They're right to point it out, but I just missed it. I mean, frankly, that's the truth.
All right. To the point of, Willie-isms, and of course, if Willie's the emperor of wrestling, if you start a D1 program tomorrow, brand new program, doesn't matter where, doesn't matter size, whether it be G5, NAI, D1, FBS, whatever that is, who's the first kid you're going to build your program around?
That's in high school?
Right now, in high school.
Oh, let me see. So it's senior?
Doesn't
What if
it could be you could be doing a Morgan State announcing and wrestling 2 years from now. The world is your oyster. The world is your shrimp and grits.
All right, if I'm gonna go, well, I'll tell you, man, any of these guys, but in a world where Ben Keeter isn't playing football, I would not mind having that kid.
Because heavyweights, hardest to recruit, right?
Heavyweights, let's say Ben Keeter does not play football at all.
If he's not the freakishly disgusting athlete that he is,
right? Right. That'd be hard not to pick Ben Keeter.
Yeah. All right. I like it. Now, side note, where would that program be? That's also one, because this is a discussion we all like to chew around. Where would it be?
Easy peasy. Kansas State. I love
Kansas State. All right.
Manhattan. It's in the Midwest. It's a place where I think kids would come to, the student body would come to a wrestling match, I believe. I went to school there for a year, and I think it's that kind of place. I think it's big enough that, it's a Big 12 program, but small enough that there's not a lot of distractions.
True college town too. It's not, that's one thing I like. Like Morgantown's a college town. It's not like, the University of Minneapolis, University of Minnesota is in Minneapolis. That's a major city with a college in it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Those are the towns that I like.
Here's a good question too. We need to jump in on is who spent more years in college, me or you?
I spent a lot, boy. I spent a lot.
I was 7.
I think that's what I was about. I think that about what I had.
I was 7 as an undergrad, though.
I think that's more than I had.
Anyway, okay, so Kansas State. Now, let's go. I want to give you one more question off that tangent there.
I love Kansas State. I'm telling you right now. No
Power 5. Where give me a G5 or a mid major that you would start up?
Well, if I had my brother, and I might do this. If things go well, I would like to semi-endow or do what I could to keep Bloomsburg happy. But if you're asking me somewhere that doesn't have a program, that doesn't exist, non-Power 5, how about Maine Trappers?
Well, they're the Black Bears, but
the Black Bears. Who's the Trappers? Vermont?
No, Vermont's the Catamounts. The Trappers is Northwest Wyoming.
I think there's another Trappers. Vermont. Let's do Vermont.
Yeah, Vermont doesn't even have football.
Good. Some of those schools shouldn't have football. It's stupid. It messes up their whole athletic department.
Steve Cashman again going with the Lynchburg.
I'll tell you what. Liberty had a great program, didn't they?
Yeah, but Lynchburg University. Dillon has a good one. I mean, this is P5, Syracuse, obviously, and I was actually looking this up the other day.
P5, Dillon.
Yeah, I know, but this also to the point. I was looking up some history stuff. What we're going to do for the MatScouts show is about, the clamoring. This is part of this discussion we're having here as we're getting off the topic of the Super 32 for a minute. But like, oh, well, Alabama had wrestling. All these P5s that we now call P5s had wrestling. Well, they were funded less than like mid-level D3s are today. So it's like, did we really lose a lot there?
Yeah,
or is it just, having those names? And granted, those programs are only around for about 15 years in a lot of cases. But a Syracuse, a BYU, and an Oregon are the three biggest current P5s we lost.
Here's knockdown the number one school, non-power 5 is Gonzaga.
Yeah, they've become a college basketball blue blood, so that kind of a modern day blue blood, I think, is what I read in either The Athletic or something that's not crappy.
Washington, Idaho, Montana, you need a program up there. Gonzaga's in Spokane, right on the border of Idaho and Washington.
It's in Vision Quest country.
I mean, first of all, it's a beautiful area up there, and second of all, you need a program there. It's small school. It would be perfect. Wrestling would be perfect at Gonzaga.
No disagreement there. I think other than firing the AD at my alma mater and then bringing it back there, I always thought, another school right up the road again. William & Mary used to have a program. I mean, that's my backyard, but I'm just looking at all this, like, where would we go? Where would we go? Like, I think Dylan brings this one up too. Dartmouth had a team for a very, very short time.
Why don't they have a team? Why doesn't Dartmouth and Yale have teams?
I mean, did you know the team leader for women's freestyle this last year, Jim Bennett, was a national champ at Yale?
What?
Yeah.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah. So we've got this is what's jumping in. Okay, this is one we can actually have later too, but I was just curious on where you get there now. Now, I guess the last one I've got, actually there's two. I got a last one and then a bonus question. Now that we've gone through the tournament, we've got some things we're knowing about Greensboro in the area. Where's the best place to rehydrate after either a day, a seating meeting, or a full tournament?
In Greensboro?
Yes.
I'm telling you, you know that I am a creature of habit. I go to the same spot. I go to Daryl's, Smoky Bones, Hooters on Friday night. I don't know if I've ever been to anywhere else. Where do you like?
Well, it's been 14 years since I've been there, and I wasn't a craft beer snob before I got down there. So I know, like, Tony Rotundo is out there in Carolina right now. He was sending me pictures from a brewing company in Raleigh last night. He goes, I might move here. So, good old research triangle. I need to research the craft beers in the triangle, honestly. And I did App State Media Day yesterday. I need to get out to Boone to get some stuff out there.
There's Rob Preston. Robbie Preston's dad and Preston's dad.
Photo guy of many things. He's not just a photo guy, but he's done photos. Yeah,
he's an absolutely wonderful human being. Him and his wife. And a couple years ago, they built a home down there about an hour outside, and it is about the most gorgeous thing you've ever seen. I mean, the view out their window.
I mean, the 10-pound brisket I made last week was a pretty beautiful thing too. But yeah. All right, lastly.
Yes.
We know that Willie's a creature of habit. Will we ever get a return to hashtag Willie Faves?
Yeah, I think about it all the time. You know what? I cannot separate hashtag Willie Faves without thinking of you, because you loved it. You always brought it up. Yeah, maybe I'll get there one day.
Now, do you worry about that because, like, your seating thing, and people look at it and be like, "Oh, you like that kid? You're going to seat him higher." You ever get those emails?
No.
Or DMs?
No. And I'll tell you what. This year, I goof around and say, crazy emails are going to come in. It's been getting better every year. I don't know if it's because I say there's crazy emails going to come in. I don't know if it's because I incrementally have done a better job over the years. I don't know if it's because I don't know what the purpose is. I don't know what the reason is, but the emails I get, the feedback I get are much more polite, much more informed Yeah, it's a lot better.
That's one thing I don't miss about rankings. So, last thing we're going to talk about on the Super 32 wrapping up, because I do want to touch on the forum thing. Actually didn't talk about that. We talked about it pre-show,
Yeah.
but we actually didn't talk about it
Yeah.
in the beginning of this show. Let's talk Dave and Sarah. Dave Barker, Sarah Koenig. They have done this tournament since it was just a fundraiser in, Eden Moorhead, and, guys like Drake Dickinson were wrestling in this thing. And, it was, I remember Brad Argabright from William Byrd won this thing. He ended up wrestling at Carson Newman back in the day. He was, one of those Southwest Virginia kids at William Byrd. I just remember it was really a really local tournament, and that Christiansburg and Great Bridge started showing up. And then all of a sudden, this thing, one year they had it in two separate schools because of, they had outgrown the facility. And, the job that they've done, and it's a labor of love. Really, it's just been nuts. So let's talk Dave and Sarah for a minute, because they didn't get to do the interview this year, because I know that they're busy people this week. I was like, we need to talk to Willie about the Super 32, because they're freaking busy right now.
Yeah, I mean, and you can see, for real, when you're down there, you can see the exhaustion in their being, right? They put a lot of work in, a lot of hours. They can feel it by the end of the tournament. They're just exhausted, and but it really has been just amazing how it all came together. I mean, their objective was to provide a tournament to get ready for the season for North Carolina, for their state.
Yeah, because the Super 32 was the rankings that they had at North Carolina.
Right. Right. And so they wanted to, their objective was to service the kids in their state, to provide an opportunity for the kids in their state to get ready. And that turned into madness, because then Great Bridge was at the height of their powers, right? The Patrick Bondish years.
Yeah,
right?
Frischkorns, Bonds, Stalers, et al.
And so what happened was they had all these studs and studs that were like nationally renowned. We're going out to Fargo and winning it, right? So people heard they were going to this tournament. So then some PA boys went, I'm going looking for that guy. And Jersey guys said, I'm going to go down to that tournament. And before you know it, it turns into just...
This before or after the Jersey guys ended up going to Christiansburg and then going to the tournament.
Yeah. So it was really just an amazing... I don't know how it happened. It happened so organically. Like I said, every other event that you want to put together, it's like pulling teeth to start a new event and getting the talent there. There's always reasons why people don't want to go. People don't want to do it. It costs too much. It's the wrong time of the year. It's the wrong location. I didn't like this. Whatever they're doing, maybe it's just the talent that goes, right? But I do think that Dave and Sarah they run a good tournament. They make it very accessible for everybody. I think there's a lot of fidelity to knowing the area. I always say that, right? If you're going to hit this spot and this spot and this spot, and this is where the best hotels are, and this is the restaurant you want to go to, and this is how you get into the parking lot. I mean, anything. This is the traffic. These are the roads. People have been going to Super 32, the same coaches, the same parents for 10, 15 years. And it's just like Virginia Beach too, right? I mean,
I just looked this up. Speaking of the restaurants, I just realized the Po Folks is still there in Greensboro. Country fried steak, brother. Po Folks. That was another southern chain. Po Folks. In
Greensboro? I love
Yeah. And then there's, of course, the breakfast at Bojangles. I know the Sways also enjoyed those trips also. And you talk about the same things we did. Now, he's not with us anymore, but one of my favorite things to do was the van. And when I talk about the van, I mean Wayne Danger. The van with Wayne Danger. You just, all right. Oh, man, I need a beer. Let me go to the van. So we don't really advertise that, but yeah.
There were a couple occasions where I'd go out to my car or something, and Joe Dance, Big Joe Dance, be drinking some Budweisers out the back of his pickup. Right? I mean, he's a piece of work. There's campers, there's motorhomes in the parking lot. It's pretty cool.
Dude, go to the Virginia Double A, or what used to be the Double A state tournament. It's the one me and Earl always joke about with the Cotton Eye Joe on repeat and Winter by Pen. There's the guys that my buddy Dale Reed, he actually was a big Orange OW in like the 80s for William Byrd, but Christiansburg guy and Tech fan, they've got an RV out there. And it's like it was like you go to the parking lot, like I don't want to sell them out because I'm sure they know what goes on in that because they've been sitting out there the last 20-some years. But it's like you go in there and they'll be like Shane Bowman, 4-time state champion Grundy in there. You got the Christiansburg guys in there. You got just the entire who's who of the Southwest Virginia wrestling community was in this RV, and it was just like, oh, this is. I need to spend more time in here, but I got to go inside and work and check out Waylon Ryder of Magna Vista. Actually, I don't even know where he went. Winter by Pen. But anyway, to that point, to the southern things. Now, last thing, we're done with the Super 32. Dave, Sarah, sorry, I'm going to be out there. I got to get out there one of these days again because even though I picked up hockey.
That's what I was going to get at. When does your hockey gigs?
I had my first game with St. Cloud State 2 weeks ago. They were off this weekend. They're at Wisconsin this coming weekend. And I'm back in the box because I am on the ice. I am down between the penalty boxes, calling the PA. In 2 weeks,
really good, right?
They're ranked 10th in the country, depending on the poll you look at. Yeah. So yeah, it's there is no Division II hockey. It's either D1 or D3 or the massive ACHA. I think it's the American College Hockey Association. So when you saw like the Big Ten thing happen and USC and UCLA went out there with like the hockey, that wasn't Photoshop. Those were like their club teams. Like they're like it's not like people using MS Paint to do to singlets or something, or Photoshop to do singlets or something. This is like legit hockey stuff. Like there was a Liberty. Steve Cashman's in the chat. Wrestled at Campbell and such, and did some time at Liberty. And is Brian Snyder calling you now?
What was Brian Snyder? How'd you know that?
Because he's the only one you answer your phone for when it rings.
Is he on here? He's not on there. I don't know how to not have this thing. It's on silent. You
swipe up, and then there's you probably got Snyder on like the super awesome always ring thing, because every time I see him, he's talking to you. Every time I see you, when you're on the phone, you're talking to him. Anyway,
I talk to him 7 times a day, and all we do is fight about politics.
You guys freaking FaceTime me one time in a car after a dual meet. Anyway, so we're hockey real quick.
No, he's doing it again.
Put him on. Just say you're on the show. Just do it. You've done it before. Snyder. You do it on your show. Why wouldn't you do it on mine?
Hey, you're on a show live right now. You're on Jason.
Hey, let's talk. What do you want to talk about?
You're on with Jason, me and Jason Bryant live, and you're not going to Super 30. It's a show about Super 32. You're not going because you're a loser. You know who is going? Your boy James Green. We're gonna be best friends.
That's great. Have fun. Have fun. Coach Manny will be down. He was just going over the seeds before we left the office, and he's excited to come hang out with you.
Did he get a haircut? Yesterday he looked like Terry Bradshaw.
Terry Bradshaw. He did not get a haircut.
This part of the show brought to you by Cornhusker Wrestling. When nobody else has crap to do, call Willie at Cornhusker Wrestling.
Good field. Hey, I'll call you back in a little bit and yell at you about, I don't know, Nancy Pelosi. Okay, I'll call you. Hey, so Snyder.
I just wanted that to happen once because it's happened to you all the time. I just wanted it to happen on my show.
It's so crazy. Snyder, a while ago, probably like 6 months ago, he had all his NCAA stuff, all his NCAA matches digitized from, I don't know, VHS tapes and CDs or whatever. And he sent it to me in a zip file, and it was like 4 o'clock this morning. For the first time ever since I had them, these files, I went and looked at them. It is so crazy how young Mark Manning looked. He's been there forever, boy.
He was because he was at UNI before that, right?
Yeah. Is he the longest tenured or the longest tenured?
No. John Smith and Tom Borelli.
Okay, so he's the longest tenured Big Ten.
Well, was that your question? Hold on. I actually have this looked up. I can actually do this right now. Let me go to my D1 capsules, because I've been working on my D1 preview guide already. Yeah, I'm working. You know that the monster guide that I do for the NCAA's D1 team capsules. Let's see. I just updated this. If I was wise enough to screen share it, I would, but I don't want to give all this juicy stuff away. So, in the Big Ten, let's filter, because I love Doc.
Stat that came out about him.
So Big Ten, longest tenured Big Ten coach. Actually, let's see. Where is me?
So
23rd. Yep, he is the longest tenured Big Ten coach.
Yeah.
So it's Poeta in his second, Escobedo in his fifth, Brandt at 17 already.
That went so fast,
dude. Freaking the Hokie Gate was 17 years ago. Think about that.
That's accurate.
2005. 0506, right?
That means Gable's been done for like 25 years.
Well, his was 97. His last year was 97 because that was our senior year in high school. Yes, me and Willie graduated the same year.
You are old.
Clemson in his fourth, Bourmet in his fifth, Chandler in his seventh, Eggman in his seventh, Manning 23rd, Storney in his seventh, Tom Ryan seventh, because Tom Ryan same year because Ohio State started all of that. Kale in his 14th, Ursuland in his 8th, Goodale in his 16th, Bono in his 5th. That's the current.
What did you say? Tom Ryan 17th?
Brands and Ryan. That was the same coaching year.
Same year, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That was what started because Russ retiring is what started it all. That was the craziest year.
Then all hell broke loose.
And then it happened again when Kale left Iowa State.
Earl had a really good piece about that. It might have been in multiple parts, but it was really good. The way that all went down.
Yeah,
whatever
that's crazy.
Year that was. What year was that? 2005.
Yeah. So So here's the crazy thing about that year. So I'm back in the day. We're going to talk about the forum here in a minute. This is the because Willie doesn't answer his phone all the time. So this is our quality time. We were I was doing my fantasy baseball draft, which this league I've been in since I worked at the newspaper. I mean, I've been in this league for 20 some years. Oddly enough, it's one of the baseball leagues where it used to be had baseball beat writers in it where they drop somebody and I'd pick them up and be like, he writes for the Reds, right? They're going on the DL tomorrow. Sure enough, there's that type of stuff. So I'm in there. I finished second in the rotisserie this year for baseball, second highest I've ever finished in baseball roto. So we're doing the draft, and let me think. Who is it? Yeah, it was Zaleski's contract was announced not renewed earlier that afternoon. So Iowa changing coaches. That was the big thing on InterMat. Went home, ordered I'm living in Lancaster in my apartment, ordered my Chinese food, had my jug of Turkey Hill iced tea, had my freaking giant can of, I was on Kodiak at the time because it wasn't expensive as much. So I've got my chew, my Chinese food, my iced tea, my printouts from the fantasy draft, and then boom, Bobby Douglas out at Iowa State. In the middle of the fantasy draft, which was we were doing it through Instant Messenger. So I was actually using an InterMat page to update the draft chart online, like updating it all. I think I picked David Wright in round 1 that year. That ought to tell you how long ago this was. Hey, guys, I had to stop. I had to update everything. I was just the craziest 30 minutes of my life with so every year we have this draft, and I always let them know, no coaching changes today. And actually one year there were 2 coaching changes later on, but they were mid-majors. They weren't Iowa and Iowa State changing coaches the same day. So I will always remember that about that year as it ruined my fantasy baseball draft. I might actually have that draft online somewhere. I'll have to show you the link because, it was on InterMat.
So the Mat.com has announced that they're stopping the message boards, which is a sad, sad day. That the Mat.com message boards sort of
20 years. I think it's old enough to drink. It may be old enough to drink because I think they bought the domain from Joe LaRue, who, side note, I believe was the same guy that started. Did Joe LaRue start NCMat and Super 30? Because I think he had the Mat, and I think he might have been the first one to own NCMat.com.
Were there not message boards on the Mat.com in the late 90s?
Well, InterMat had a board, and then I had a board. That was basically the only 2 boards that existed until Wrestling Report had one. And then they kind of exploded 99 because I started one in 97 when I launched the first iteration of Mat Talk Online. And oddly enough, John Cerritos was the subject of I actually mentioned this on today's Short Time. was the subject of many an issue because of the transfer from Bethel to Great Bridge in the height of the Steve Martin, or the beginning of those heavy Steve Martin years, where a lot of kids in the peninsula went over because the Peninsula High School wrestling saved my high school. Was pretty bad. I mean, there was a good one here and there, but yeah, the forums were nuts. And I remember I always signed up as I had my real name. I always posted as my real name, except on the old Wrestling Talk, which I was Dart Shark, but everybody knew it was me. And then the only other forum I've never used my real name on was the Old Dominion fan page, like CAA Zone, and now they're in the Sun Belt. So I've been ODU Wildman there forever because it's my old Skype handle. But yeah, been posting as my name. I remember one year, I think it was Chris Von Druska beat Michael Martin at the Ironman, and it was like Caution City because sometimes those Ohio officials call things slightly different. With takedowns, but it was like he got hit with like 5 cautions. I think Martin scored the only takedown of the match and lost 5-2. So it was like stalls and cautions. So I remember asking Bob Prusy, because I didn't go to the Ironman that year. I want to say this is 0102-ish in that range. I says, hey, Bob, what was the deal with the Von Druska match? I understand it was a little controversial because I didn't see it. I wasn't there. There was no streaming. And I remember him popping off at me, going, it was a takedown I respect. It was like peak Ohio Bob in that era. And it was like, okay. And that was one of those things like, this
Just
is kind
ask
of
me a question, Bob.
And this is where I think the pinfall thing came from, probably more than anything else. Because I went on a rant one day. There were people talking about wrestling pet peeves, and I remember writing why I hated pinfall so much. I feel like everybody. Jake Herbert saw that post. He was a senior in high school, and he needled me about that more than him and Storney just got on it when they all through college. They were on me about it. And I was like, where do you guys? He's like, dude, I remember you reading your post when I was in high school on the mat. And I'm like, that's where you guys got it from. And of course, it wasn't my thing. I mean, it was coaches yelling at the newspaper for writing it. And I didn't write them at the time, but so I feel like that post is like the one thing people cite the most because of the whole pinfall thing too.
I think message boards are not only. Beyond fun, I think they're necessary, and I think they serve a really good purpose. If you look at you want to take a microcosm, because a lot of people will say wrestling boards, they're trash, and you get all kinds of terrible comments and bad people, just bad attitudes and bad information, and what purpose do they serve, and this and that. You get a lot of good stuff too, and I would argue that individual schools' message boards are really important and keep people engaged and talking and sort of invested in the program and what's going on. I think in USA Wrestling's thing today, they said that there's social media now, and that's where everybody goes, and this and that, and it's true. It's true. But I still think message boards can be popular and serve a great purpose. And so I 100% want to start message boards on
I'd be all for another board coming back. I made the one with the mat.
I need somebody's help. Like I said, I don't even know how to work.
But here's the one thing that people, one thing
out there
behind every message board is some guy that hates his life because they started a message board or they have to monitor it or moderate it or
I know, but
I've got a Discord server. I mean, you've been in it. You've been in some other Discords where Discord is like much more. There's like a bunch of people that want to moderate together. Whereas a message board, I was the mod for that thing for 3 years, and I have been off and on an emergency mod in between hires after I left, before Richard got hired, after Richard left, before Taylor got hired, after Taylor got promoted, before Willis got hired, before Joe got hired, before Ellie got. So I've been the emergency moderator for so many times, and we changed over the format. I guess, with the message boards dying, we can also bring back the old open mat thing. Because it was 2 message boards were started because of bannings on the mat.com. One was, I think it was the Mike Zadek thing at the Olympics. It might have been almost 3 or 2. Metcalf's shove thing at the Nationals. I think it was that same year. And then maybe even actually before that, it might have been the squirrel thing or the raccoon thing. I don't know. So it had to do with Iowa wrestlers shooting something, not each other. but it was one of those things where it started another board.
Oh, what,
and
the Iowa thing
but-
when they were hunting on campus?
yeah, I think that was one of them. It was the Zadok thing, the Metcalf thing. Yeah, people got banned, and then the open mat started.
Well,
the wrestling talk started.
I got banned once on the mat.com, but
I unbanned you as soon as I got hired, by the way.
I said, just effing ban me. Because they were, I don't know. It was Sesker, I think, who was just grumpy at the world and whatever. So, I understand. I love message boards. I think they're going to be good. I'm going to start it on.
I think the national governing body having one created a little bit of an issue, and then having to
100%.
monitor that, because to the point I actually wanted to get to is there was a glitch. So Eric Betterman, who founded, him and Brinzer and you were all the early open mat crew. There was in the old software, there was a word that would freeze the board. It would just close the board down.
Really?
And it usually evolved in the non-wrestling topics forum, which was the shit show of
I loved every second of it. I'm
the
gonna tell you
Dreamy
right now.
Velvet and JTTS and some of the old
I'm telling
heads.
you right now, I'm going to start the InterMat message boards, and I don't know.
I mean, hey, go for it. You know what? Here's the thing. As long as I don't have to freaking deal with it, I'm not gonna. I might help you how to freaking set it up, but I definitely am not gonna freaking moderate it because I don't want to.
I will moderate it. I will moderate it because I have no wife, no kids, no life really, other than wrestling. I will be on it all the time. But I'm gonna say this:
13 years ago, before I was married, I would check all those boxes.
Right, that's where I am right now. But I will have non-wrestling topics. I would probably call it the dumpster fire, and people can just. I'm a free space.
I just hate politics anyway, so I don't like to even dive into that. But like, so the word was magistrate. You typed the word magistrate, and something about the forum software had in the code that was like the kill phrase.
But didn't Ray?
Eric would do that all the time. They would and so every time you'll see I'll call back to it or call off to it, but like you'll see like magistrate. I'll put it on the boards and be like, oh, it doesn't work, and some like 3 people will get the joke.
Yeah.
And then, so anyway, they changed it. We changed over the software when we tried to institute our own social media network called USA Wrestling Nation. That didn't quite fly very well. But the boards had an updated software where it had report functions. We're like, hey, somebody's being a jackleg, hit report. We take care of it. And it got to the point where I was like, I had a job that I had to spend 50 hours a week doing anyway. And this is just when I was there from 2009 to 12. And it was like, ugh. And then I'd still get the reports. Even though I wasn't an active moderator, I'd still get the reports. So I would know when there's a dumpster fire on the mat because my email would fill up. I'm like, oh, crap. Or there's like new account created. And you're like, because then I changed this is like to post, you had to have a post approved. So you couldn't just start an account and post something right away. You'd be like, okay, that's legit. Click. Some people would try to get around it by posting something mundane 3 or 4 times. And and then you see the IP address tools and be like, oh, you've been banned before. You're gone. And it's not like, it's basically because, when it's not fun, it's not fun. And then people get mad at the governing body for having, you guys love this trash. It's like, Terry Brands called me at 6:00 in the morning one time. I think this was the raccoon situation. And screaming at me because of something on the message boards. Because Bender had called me at 5:30 in the morning to warn me about something that happened in Iowa. Keep an eye out on the boards. And I'm sitting there, I'm listening. I'm like, okay, I got up, I looked at it. I'm like, oh, it's tame right now. If there's any crap, I'll take it down. No sooner did I get back to my bed, close my eyes. Terry is screaming at me on the phone. And, it was just like, it was like, Then I get in the office. I said, I'll take care of it. Calls me back, screaming at me again. Rich Bender said you take care. I was like, I remember. My wife can just see me seething sometimes, and she's like, what are you doing? It's like, somebody's wrong on the internet. Or it's just like, what are you doing? These freaking idiots are like 2 months ago, I called somebody out by name. Well, I didn't say their full name, but, they've pretty much made no bones about who they are. They spoofed a number so I would answer. They called, nope, not answering that. Nope, not answering, not answering. USA Wrestling number pops up. I'm like, crap, Gary's calling me about this post. No, the guy spoofed the number so I'd answer the phone. People take this shit seriously, dude. It's like, I don't want anything to do with it. I'll post on it for sure, but dude, there's the best thing about our community is the best thing about our community. But when you see some of the stuff that never got through because people are creating stuff just to create accounts to screw with kids and coaches and other people, I'm like, man, you people really need to freaking get a life. So I wonder what some people are going to do now that there's no message board. Are they going to,
Well,
I don't know, do their
I
job or
don't know.
something? Because that one guy that likes to check in from the Jefferson County Library in Colorado has had his name like banned 5 or 6 times. So, you know who you are. I'm not going to out anybody, but yeah, I still know who some of those people are. No, I'm still not going to tell people who Mudflap is. That was the one perk about being the mod, is knowing who Mudflap was.
I'm gonna do it, and if people act up, they can be banned. I'm not gonna, whatever. We'll see. We'll see how it
Like I
goes.
said, I have one rule on my Discord server, and it's just don't be a dick. That's really the only rule I got. That's the only rule you need. But anyway, that's where we're at. So I posted about this a couple times on the board. Granted, it's been an hour and a half since we started the show, which means I haven't looked at the boards in an hour and a half. So who knows how many replies and so it's just, it's bad when it's like, oh crap. And I remember I created the waste management login when I left as an emergency in case I ever needed to get in, so I could be an emergency, because as emergency moderator, then other people handled it for a while. The last volunteer we had just freaking quit when people started attacking him for being politically, like, the moderator's like, I can't do this. Like, yeah, you're not being paid for this. I wasn't being paid for it after I left. So
I already got DMs.
You jumped on it. Hey, you want to, here's the thing. The boards, like, I'm on college football boards all the time. Hell, Message Board Geniuses on Twitter is one of my favorite accounts to follow. It's like the train wreck that is like the best of Nextdoor. Like when you're on Nextdoor and looking at all your neighbors like complaining about everything because they're being just like Karens and Chads. It's just like, that's, sometimes you want to read the train wreck. You don't want to have to manage it. But, all the boards, like the C, what is it? One of the boards I'm on, it's got like a fan board for every conference and stuff. They're great, but they're not managed by the school. They're not manned by. It's like the NCAA running a message board. Not good. So I think USA Wrestling needed to get out of it.
They certainly were in a.
I'm losing. I lost hair. I mean, I was on blood pressure meds when I worked there. So when I left the job, they're like, you're off your blood pressure meds. The forum, I think, had a lot to do with it. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm doing it. I love it. Well, I'll figure it out. If people act like, if it's overwhelmingly,
here's the thing. I'm not saying, I think they needed to go for USA Wrestling. The boards themselves don't need to go. Like the Wrestling Talk was great, and Jacob died, and that kind of went away. But and sometimes Facebook groups are there. Some are very active, some are not.
Right. Before I bought InterMat. I was thinking, I'll buy InterMat, I'll do this and this and this. And one of those was start message boards. But it wasn't a high priority item because there's message boards that exist, and the mat.com is okay. Now that's going away. Now I think, like, not that I owe it to wrestling, but wrestling deserves a central message board. It deserves a community. And so I'm going to make it happen, whatever it takes.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's time. Like, here's the thing: USA Wrestling has 3 members in communications, 1 person and 2 people in IT. Well, basically, their jobs are not to babysit the forum. And now, granted, it is part of the job, so it's time that if this is going to take. And the thing is, it's been again, I've had to step in probably more, and the reason I have stepped in is because I cared about the message boards a lot. I could have been like, I'm done with this. You guys figure it out. And it would they'd have been too busy. So a lot of this, I'm not. I'm patting myself on the back here a little bit in terms of this, but I spent my time to make sure that we had this community going. I think it's time for them to go for the mat. The open mat had a really good board for a while. It's will evolve.
In addition to their communications department being small.
Well, they're also down a full-timer now, too. They're down to 2. It's a 3-person job, and it's a grind of a 3-person job.
Conflict of interest, right? I mean, it's not what they do nor what they need to be focusing on. So
and another thing, too, is like, even when, and I'll say this, like, your previous employer, notwithstanding, it's like, but if anybody ever had a problem with something, they'd always go to the mat. It's like, why am I going to, it's like I'd go to Walmart to yell about Kmart. Why would you? Why?
Yeah, I know. I know.
I always wondered, like, why don't you ask them? Or what was another one? It's like if something ever went wrong, or like so during the whole like New Way USA Wrestling thing, where I was getting attacked left and right just simply because I had a job that had to manage the mess. Okay, well, I'm running Sony. Sony's running a message board. I'm not going to sit there and let them come on and attack Sony and talk about how great Epson is. Like,
Well,
no!
they shouldn't be focusing on that. They shouldn't have to focus on that anyway. But then it even becomes even more of a headache when, I don't know, let's say athlete X gets caught or is suspected of shoplifting or something. And then the head coach from that university says, hey, can you please take that down? Like, and then they take it down, and then the community says, well, what are you censoring stuff for? It's a conversation. If the kid did it, he could do it. It's like, why do they even need to deal with it?
And that was one thing I did to that point is when I created this rule, and I did every rule I created, I did clear with USA or with Rich or Gary or Meredith or whoever I need. It's like, hey, I think this is something we should probably do just to kind of like make sure, because usually the biggest problems is when somebody got in trouble from a power program, and it's Iowa, Oklahoma State, and Penn State would all whenever there was something happen. And I remember it was Cale Byers when he was at George Mason and had an incident that was, I think it all never actually materialized beyond it, but it was like, and then where was he going to it wasn't the incident that it was him, what happened at Mason, because nobody cared about what happened there. It wasn't until he was trying to transfer to Iowa or Oklahoma, and he ended up at Oklahoma State. It wasn't until he was trying to transfer, then it became an issue. And then they started digging. I was like, you know what? This is something that the innocent until proven guilty was an old thread they used to have for it. And it was like, you know what? This is just more trouble than it's worth. No pending litigation about active coaches or athletes. Basically, it's just one of those things that I thought was a better practice, just because it saved everybody time and effort. You want to talk about it? Go talk about it somewhere else. Just this isn't the place to do it. Anyway, we could talk about this topic for another hour or two, but kids are about to get. Let's see, what is it? Kids are getting off the bus, and Willie's got to unpack from Serbia. And so with that, and what do you got? The skull straight?
Oh, yeah.
All right, hold on. I'm going to do something real quick. Let's see if I can look this up real quick. How many days since 2000?
That's right on air. I'm going to just go like this.
2,291 days since I've had a chew.
Going on about an hour and a half.
On a show about high school wrestling, Willie throws in a lipper. Although that is probably one of your best, your old flow marketing shot with you at the fake Wikipedia page or something. That was a good one. Also, how much is it up there? How much is a can up there?
5 something. It's way expensive where you're at, right?
It's like $11. It's like $11 for the good stuff. Grizzly was like 10. And I was a can a day guy, so think about how much. I've taken every bit that I would have spent on a can a day on average, and I've put it in an investment account. The market being what it is, but let's just say it's like $13,000 I've not spit in a bottle. So
that's crazy.
Food for thought, Willie. Keep your face, because granted,
Dylan, you should be going to Greensboro, buddy.
Yeah, Dylan is brought me some beers from some good breweries up in the New England area.
There's a lot of breweries in upstate New York, isn't there?
Yeah. Did you ever go to Dogma in Serbia? I went to Dogma Brewing, got my glass, got some stuff. So anyway, all right. Well, again, we gotta lock this thing up. This is longer than the first word. So thanks, Willie. We're have a safe trip down. Hope you didn't actually drag something into your bag from Serbia that didn't just die and rot there.
I hope not.
So
they're back for lost for a week.
Yeah, here's to your laundry, and here's to the trip. We'll be watching, checking out the hashtag Willie Faves. Make it happen. Make it happen.
All right, buddy. See you later.